All right, so a couple final examples using graphs. So I've drawn 3 graphs here. Each of these graphs represents a relation, a set of ordered pairs. The difference between these graphs and the graphs in the previous examples is in the previous examples, we had a number of dots that we could count. Okay, there was, I think, 5 dots on one graph and 8 dots on another graph. When you have lines like this, that represents an infinite number of points, a number of points that we could never count. But this represents the relationship between my x values and my y values. So what we want to do is determine if this is a function or not. So we're going to use the vertical line test, which we developed last time. So remember, the definition of a function is each x value, meaning each input, has exactly one y value. And so as I go along and I use my vertical line to represent my x values, how many times does it go through the graph? So I'm just going to draw a few examples here. How many times does this vertical line go through the graph? Once. How many times does this vertical line go through the graph? Once. How many times does this vertical line go through the graph? Once. And one more time for fun, how many times does this vertical line go through the graph? Once. So as you take your ruler and make it vertical and pass it along the graph, if it hits the graph everywhere one time, then you have what's called a function, just like this first example. This next example is a v. Okay, this is an example of what's called an absolute value graph. You don't need to know that at this point. So I'm just going to pass some vertical lines. And notice, each time I draw a vertical line, how many times does that vertical line go through the graph? One time. So this is a function. The last graph is the graph of a circle. Now notice, all that has to happen is this has to fail one time. So when I pass a vertical line, how many times does that vertical line go through the graph? Once up here and once down here. That violates the definition of a function. Function says that for each x value, there should only be one y value, so that's why this is not a function. So being able to look quickly with the vertical line test and determine if something is a function is a great skill.